Let me remind everybody that Shahrokh Monjazeb is a translator and has written a little book on the life of Bahá'u'lláh, has done a series of courses and web talks for the Wilmot Institute on, among other things, the Bayan, the Lawh-i-Sultan, the tablet to the Shah, and now we have this particular series to the Ottoman Prime Ministers. Previously, he also did a series about Baha'u'llah's three declarations, the Siyah Chal event, the Rezvan event, and the tablets to the kings. And so today we will be turning to our second webinar about the tablets to the Ottoman Prime Ministers, and the topic today is the Lawh-i-Ra'ís, right? Not the Súriy-i-Ra'ís, the Lawh-i-Ra'ís.
No, it's Súriy-i-Ra'ís still.
Súriy-i-Ra'ís. So why don't we get started and run on through the Súriy-i-Ra'ís. I'll turn off my camera and microphone.
Thank you, Robert. Friends, good to have you here for the part 2 of the course on the 3 tablets of Baha'u'lláh, Súriy-i-Ra'ís, Lawh-i-Ra'ís, and Lawh-i-Fu'ád. Last time we covered only the first 8 paragraphs of Súriy-i-Ra'ís, which was the first tablet revealed by Baha'u'lláh from a historical point of view, from a chronological point of view. And the first 8 paragraphs essentially dealt with a proclamation, an address, a summons to Álí Páshá, the great prime minister, the Turkish prime minister in the mid-19th century, who was responsible for Baha'u'llah's banishment to Akka, amongst other people who were involved, but he was one of the key instruments of securing the Sultan's farman to banish Baha'u'lláh to the penal colony of Akka. In paragraphs 9 and 10, Baha'u'lláh begins to shift his remarks to Hájí Muhammad Ismá, íl-i-Káshání, who he refers to Anís, or companion. As you recall, this tablet was actually revealed in honor of Hájí Muhammad Ismá, íl-i-Káshání, one of the great companions and early believers. And I spoke about the historical background and a little bit about him as well. So Baha'u'lláh continues in paragraph 9, and his pen basically addressing Dhabíḥ, he says, "Forsake thy mention of the chief, O pen, and call to remembrance Anís, that intimate of the love of God, who severed himself from the wayward and the infidel. He tore the veils asunder in such wise that the inmates of paradise could hear them being rent." Wonderful imagery of his detachment and his faithfulness to the cause of the Bab and Baha'u'lláh. Glorified be God, the sovereign, the powerful, the all-knowing, the all-wise. Then Baha'u'lláh addresses himself. It's basically the voice of God addressing the person, the manifestation of God. "O nightingale." Now, this nightingale is, I just want to make mention of it briefly here. It's basically warqa, is that the original is warqa, and the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, has translated warqa. And just to tell you a little bit briefly about this phrase, in Arabic, the word warqa, means leaf, like waraqatul ulya, the most exalted leaf. But the word warqa with the hamza after the alif is typically referred to a pigeon or a bird or a dove. But the translation the Guardian has used very interestingly is nightingale here. The word al-andalib is in Arabic is nightingale. But Baha'u'lláh in the Tablet of Ahmad, as well as here, refers to himself and the person of the manifestation. This is a metaphor used to describe the manifestation of God. So here the Guardian has translated into the word nightingale, who actually sings. The dove does not sing here. So it's very interesting. I found it very fascinating. For example, in the Tablet of Ahmad, lo, the nightingale of paradise singeth upon the twigs of the tree of eternity. And it's the word is هذه ورقة الفردوس تقني على أفنان السرة البقاء بألحان القدس المليح. So that one is again is warqa, and here is warqa. So just something I found very interesting, that, and the translation, the House of Justice are using the same phrase that the Guardian, the translation, as the nightingale. So, O nightingale, incline thine ear unto the voice of the All-Glorious on this night when armed troops have surrounded us while we remain in a state of utmost joy. Oh, would that our blood might be shed upon the earth and our bodies cast upon the dust in the path of God. This indeed is my desire, and the desire of whosoever hath sought me and attained unto my most wondrous, mine incomparable kingdom. I want to take a moment here and just pick up where I left off last time about the historical circumstances of this tablet. I'm now more convinced, based on the text, that the tablet was actually revealed in its entirety in the town of Káshání before Gallipoli. And because, as we will see throughout the remaining parts of this text, if we read carefully, Baha'u'lláh does talk about that he received the letter of Anís, and while basically he's surrounded here. So this is, I believe, his reference to the escort, where he is in the town of Káshání, just a couple of days away from Gallipoli. And at this time, Hájí Muhammad Ismá has not attained the presence of Baha'u'lláh. In fact, he had written a letter that Baha'u'lláh receives, whether in Adrianople or here in Káshání, and he basically peruses its contents and decides to respond to it. And I believe there's at least one question in there about the soul, which he explains. So I'm now a bit more convinced, having read the text more closely, that the tablet was revealed in its entirety in the town of Káshání. However, Anís did attain the presence of Baha'u'lláh in the public bath, which was one of his wishes, to attain the presence of Baha'u'lláh. But in this tablet, he consoles him and says that even though you're not here, it is as though you are here, standing before me. So Baha'u'lláh very graciously consoles Anís for having not been able to attain in person his presence, but he basically says, be patient. And I think Anís achieves his heart's desire briefly in the public bath by attaining the presence of Baha'u'lláh. But I don't think in the public bath there would have been opportunities where he could have sat down and had a discourse with Baha'u'lláh like he would have if he was attaining his presence, for example, in Adrianople at his house. So that circumstance certainly has passed, but Baha'u'lláh here is dignifying the response to him and consoling him and graciously applauding his fortitude and his patience and his loyalty. In paragraphs 11 through 13, Baha'u'lláh recounts the events surrounding his expulsion from Edirne For a more detailed account of the last few days of Baha'u'llah's stay in Edirne, see Hassan Balyuzi's Baha'u'llah King of Glory, pages 255 to 260. Mr. Balyuzi covers it quite extensively and in great detail, quoting from eyewitness accounts of Agha Qannad and Hussein Ashchi and Nabil as well. So that will give you from a historical point of view, a much better picture of what was going on at the time. Know thou, O servant, that one day upon awakening, we found the beloved of God at the mercy of our adversaries. Sentinels were posted at every gate, and no one was permitted to enter or leave. Indeed, they perpetrated a sore injustice, for the loved ones of God and his kindred were left on the first night without food. Such was the fate of those for whose sake the world and all that is therein have been created. Woe betide the perpetrators and those who led them into such evil. Ere long will God consume their souls in the fire. Wow. He verily is the fiercest of avengers. Continuing, Baha'u'llah in that same paragraph 12 writes, the people surrounded the house and Muslims and Christians wept over us, and the voice of lamentation was upraised between earth and heaven by reason of what the hands of the oppressors had wrought. We perceived that the weeping of the people of the sun, the Christians, exceeded the weeping of others, assigned for such as ponder. Again, describing in more detail the events surrounding his the house arrest and his eventual subsequent banishment from the city of Edirne. Baha'u'llah writes, one of my companions offered up his life, cutting his throat with his own hands for the love of God, an act unheard of in bygone centuries and which God had set apart for this revelation as an evidence of the power of his might. And in the footnote that the House of Justice in the summons of the Lord of Hosts have provided, they identify this individual, which is also identified in Baha'i history as Haji Ja'far Tabrizi. He's also, I believe, is in the Memorials of the Faithful, if you look him up as well. And a surgeon was immediately dispatched, and his wounds were sutured and stitched, and he was saved. But again, it was an emotional and very fervid act by this great lover of Baha'u'llah, who could not stand seeing being torn apart from his beloved. Baha'u'llah continues, he verily is the unconstrained, the all-subduing. As for the one who thus slew himself in Iraq, he truly is the king and beloved of martyrs, and that which he evinced was a testimony from God unto the peoples of the earth. Such souls have been influenced by the word of God, have tasted the sweetness of his remembrance, and are so transported by the breezes of the reunion that they have detached themselves from all that dwell on earth and turned unto the divine countenance with faces beaming with light. Now, this it's very interesting. I found this very, very fascinating that Baha'u'llah at this moment remembers one of the other companions, a faithful followers, namely Sayyid Ismail Zavore. Sayyid Ismail Zavore, for those of you who have read the Dawnbreakers, Nabil recounts a bit about him and his life, because he was the one who was instrumental in bringing Nabil Zarandi, the young Nabil Zarandi, into the faith of the Bab. He was one of the early Babis, a very devoted Babi and a great teacher of the faith. He had followed Baha'u'llah to Baghdad and had attained the presence of Baha'u'llah in Baghdad and had become absolutely smitten with the love of the beloved, And Baha'u'lláh, in fact, the wonderful explanation and a little account in the Revelation of Baha'u'lláh, Volume 1 by Mr. Tahirzadeh, pages 101 to 103, which I highly recommend friends to read about Sayyid Ismail. Now, Sayyid Ismail basically sacrificed himself. He committed suicide, if you will, in the path of the beloved. Once he attained the presence of Baha'u'lláh, again, it's a very beautiful story of how he very ceremoniously went and swept the dust from the approaches to the house of Baha'u'lláh, put it in his turban, and he would do that, every day for a number of days. The last time he did that, and he would take the dust and would throw it in the Tigris River. And in the last time, he had actually bought a blade, a knife, and then he goes to the Tigris River after he does his ablutions and his prayers, directing his attention or his face towards the house of Baha'u'lláh in Baghdad. He slits his throat and commits suicide. And in one of his tablets, Baha'u'lláh says that until that time, it's a very amazing homage to this soul, that he says no purer blood had been spilled on earth than the blood of Sayyid Ismail. Obviously, I think we got to look at it more from a believer's point of view, because obviously the Bab had been martyred, and the blood of the Bab was much more sacred than the blood of any of his servants. However, this act was quite an act of a sacrifice. And again, here Baha'u'lláh explains that these individuals have been so moved by the word of God. He says this is the power of the word of God that transforms people, that completely turns people into the source of love. And they cannot contain themselves anymore, many of them, in their haste to attain their beloved. And he refers to him, to Sayyid Ismail, as the king and the beloved of the martyrs. Now, for most of us, we know there are other individuals that, namely the two Isfahani brothers, Amirza Hassan, Amirza Hussein al-Nahri, who in 1879 became martyrs, where Baha'u'lláh refers to them as the king and the beloved of the martyrs. So Baha'u'lláh has, the titles of, for example, that Baha'u'lláh gives are not always exclusive for just one individual. There are some that are exclusive, but certain titles, for example, the Twin Shining Lights. The Twin Shining Lights were, as you will see in the Book of Certitude, in the Kitab-i-Iqan, Baha'u'lláh refers and entitles Sayyid Kazim Rashti and Sheikh Ahmad Ahsai as the twin shining lights, or Nurayn and Nayrain. But later on, that title was transferred and was bestowed on the two Baha'i brothers of Isfahan, excuse me, who became known as the king and the beloved of the martyrs, Sultan al-Shahada wa Mahbub al-Shahada. And the title of Nurayn Nayrain was also bestowed on them. So here, Baha'u'lláh refers to Sayyid Ismail al-Zawarai as the king and the beloved of the martyrs. But this tablet has been revealed prior to the martyrdom of the two Isfahani brothers. So again, I just want you to contextualize where Baha'u'lláh is, how he's addressing this. But the part here now, how he explains the acts of these individuals, that even though suicide is wrong, but these people could not contain themselves anymore. Let's read what Baha'u'lláh actually says. He says, such souls have been influenced by the word of God, have tasted the sweetness of his remembrance, and are so transported by the breezes of reunion, that they have detached themselves from all that dwell on earth and turned unto the divine countenance with faces beaming with light. And though they have committed an act which God had forbidden, he hath nevertheless forgiven them as a token of his mercy. He verily is the ever forgiving, the most compassionate. So enraptured were these souls by him who is the all-compelling, that the reins of volition slipped from their grasp, until at last they ascended to the dwelling of the unseen and entered the presence of God, the Almighty, the All-Knowing. So it's a wonderful explanation of Baha'u'lláh. In a way, says that these people couldn't really help themselves. When they attained the presence of Baha'u'lláh, they were so stirred, their soul was so captivated by the word of God, by the person of the manifestation, that they lost all reason. And they eventually did what they did, and for this God has forgiven them. I personally believe also this applies to Nabil Zarandi after the ascension of Baha'u'lláh, where Abdul Baha in the Memorials of the Faithful says that anyone who would see him would be bewildered. He uses the word bewildered in the translation at his grief. Nabil was so grief-stricken, so heartbroken, that he could not see himself being alive in this plane anymore. And then he drowns himself in the Sea of Akka. So I believe this is an exception, and it's only for these very close companions, were these people who are absolutely smitten by the love of their beloved, and for them to be even separated from a moment from him would be tantamount to death anyways. In paragraph 14, the first sentence of which the beloved guardian has translated in God Passes By, page 181, Baha'u'lláh, while speaking about the futility of all the forces of oppositions towards the cause of God, he makes a mystical analogy about adversity. Fascinating to note here that in the Lawh-i-Sultán, the tablet to Nasruddin Shah, which we covered in a previous class, he makes a similar yet beautiful, different remark about adversity. So in the Lawh-i-Sultán, which is also quoted again in the Epistle to the Son of the Wolf, Baha'u'lláh refers to adversity this way. He says, verily, God hath made adversity as a morning dew upon his great pasture, and a wick for his lamp, which lighteth earth and heaven. I love this passage. It's just such a wonderful, so poetical and so profound. Verily, God hath made adversity as a morning dew upon his green pasture, and a wick for his lamp, which lighteth earth and heaven. Now, in this tablet, this is where we read what Baha'u'lláh expresses, another way of expressing adversity. Say, this youth hath departed out of this country, and despite deposited beneath every tree and every stone a trust which God will ere long bring forth through the power of truth. This first sentence has been translated by Shoghi Effendi in God Passes By. Thus hath the true one come, and the command of him who is the ordainer, the all-wise, been fulfilled. The hosts of earth and heaven are powerless to resist his cause, nor can all the kings and rulers of the world ever frustrate his purpose. Say, this is again now where adversity. Baha'u'lláh says, say, adversity is the oil which feedeth the flame of this lamp, and by which its light is increased, did ye but know. Indeed, the repudiation of the froward serveth but to proclaim this faith, and to spread the cause of God and his revelation throughout the world. In paragraph 15, Baha'u'lláh addresses in a moving language those companions, not including the members of his own family, of course, who have chosen to journey with him into exile. If you recall, last time I even said some of the individuals bought their own ticket because the government said, well, we're not giving you a ride. I mean, you're not part of the group of exile. If you insist on wanting to accompany us, you have to buy the ticket yourself and get yourself. And people were absolutely dumbfounded to find that these, lovers of Baha'u'lláh, these companions actually, scrounged up as much money they could and paid with their own money the ticket, to board the steamer that was going to take the family of Baha'u'lláh and his companions, some of his select companions, to exile. Who would pay to go into exile? I mean, this is something, again, very astonishing to any sane individual. But these people were obviously so captivated by the love of Baha'u'lláh. For them, the world meant nothing without the blessed beauty. So they, whatever it takes. They had already made the sacrifice. They were going to continue in that sacrifice and be with their Lord. Great is your blessedness. So this is Baha'u'lláh addressing these people who are now accompanying him through their own volition. Baha'u'lláh never asked them. In fact, he discouraged them to accompany him, and many of them just begged him. He said, some of them he sent away. The people, the teachers, but again, some of those people who were servants within his household and perhaps were already performing some of their duties in the service of the Holy Family. Even though Baha'u'lláh released them and said that you don't have to come along, they would not have it. They wanted to continue. So here Baha'u'lláh addresses them. He says, great is your blessedness, inasmuch as ye have forsaken your homes and wandered the land for the love of your Lord, the Almighty, the Ancient of Days, until ye entered the land of mystery at a time when the fire of oppression was ablaze and the croaking of the raven of discord had been raised. Ye are my partners in my tribulations, for ye were present with us during the darksome night in which the hearts of those who testify to the unity of God were agitated. Ye entered this land for the sake of our love, and departed therefrom through our command. By the righteousness of God, because of you, the earth itself glorifies over heaven. Wow. How excellent is this most sublime, this glorious and exalted bounty. Ye have been deprived of your nest, O birds of eternity, for the sake of your Lord, the unconstrained. But your true abode is beneath the wings of the grace of the All-Merciful. Blessed are they that understand. So he refers to them as the birds of eternity. How beautiful, how poetical, how beautiful, how touching. In paragraphs 16 and 17, Baha'u'lláh addresses Hájí Muhammad Ismá íl-i-Káshání as Dhabíḥ, or sacrifice, and confers on him his abounding love and mercy. It should be noted here that this honorary title of sacrifice was not exclusively given to Hájí Muhammad Ismá. It was bestowed by Baha'u'lláh on several individuals during his ministry. For instance, Sayyid Ismail Zaware'i, mentioned in paragraph 13, was also known as Dhabíḥ. So here, I believe also why out of the blue make mention of Sayyid Ismail. This is so fascinating to me, how the style of the manifestation, as I said to you, like the Kitab-i-Aqdas, the revelation of the Kitab-i-Aqdas, that it amazes the minds of humanity, as Baha'u'lláh himself says. Here, my personal opinion is that he wanted to, that by giving this title of Dhabíḥ, who was a living sacrifice, he was not lessening the magnitude of the sacrifice of the people who had gone before, particularly Sayyid Ismail Zaware'i. who just only a few years ago had basically committed suicide in the path of his beloved. So here, and he was also known as Dhabíḥ. Now, the word Dhabíḥ is also a title which was given to Prophet Abraham's son, Ishmael or Ismail, okay? Because it was in the Quran, it says it was Ishmael who was brought onto the rock, where now it's the Dome of the Rock, to make sacrifice in the path of God, and God sent a sheep to sacrifice instead of Ismail. The Hebrew scriptures has it a little bit differently, where it's Isaac, but the Quran says it's Ismail. And the progeny of Isaac are the Hebrews, are the Jews, the Jewish faith, and the progeny of Ismail are Muslims. So they were both children of Abraham, and the Semitic tradition really, as many of you know, stems from Abrahamic seed, if you will. Now, this is a photo, the only photo that we have of Hájí Muhammad Ismá. So I just thought to bring that and show you, in case you're wondering what he looked like. We don't have too many photos of the early believers, but we were fortunate to have a photo of him. So here Baha'u'lláh says, "Oh my Dhabíḥ." He refers to Dhabíḥ, basically, or Dhabíḥ in Arabic. So my Dhabíḥ, may the breaths of the Spirit waft upon thee, and upon such as have sought communion with thee, inhaled from thee the sweet fragrance of my presence, and hearkened unto that there whereby the hearts of the true seekers are sanctified. Render thanks unto God, inasmuch as thou hast attained unto the shores of this most great ocean, and give ear to the very atoms of the earth, proclaiming, this is the best beloved. What it refers to. The dwellers of the earth have wronged him. It's a reference to himself, Baha'u'lláh, and failed to recognize the one whose name they ceaselessly invoke. Lost are such as have remained heedless and have opposed him, for whose loved ones it would have behooved them to offer up their lives, how much more for his own luminous and resplendent beauty. Be thou patient. Baha'u'lláh consoles and encourages Dhabíḥ. Be thou patient, though thy heart be consumed in its separation from God, for he hath granted thee an exalted station in his presence. Nay, thou art even now standing before his face, and we are imparting unto thee through the tongue of might and power such words as even the ears of the sincere ones have been deprived of hearing. Say, were he to utter but one word, that word alone would exceed its sweetness all the sayings of men. In paragraph 18 and 19, Baha'u'lláh discloses the exalted nature of his revelation and uniqueness of this day of God in the annals of religious history. It is worth noting that paragraph 18 was originally translated into English by the beloved Guardian in his dispensational Baha'u'lláh letter. It's a wonderful quote here that I'm sure some of you who have read the Guardian's letter will find it familiar. This is the one. Had Muhammad, the apostle of God, attained this day, he would have exclaimed, I have truly recognized thee, O thou, the desire of the divine messengers. Had Abraham attained it, he too, falling prostrate upon the ground and in the utmost lowliness before the Lord thy God, would have cried, mine heart is filled with peace, O thou Lord of all that is in heaven and on earth. I testified that thou hast unveiled before mine eyes all the glory of thy power and the full majesty of thy law. I bear witness, moreover, that through thy revelation, the hearts of the faithful are well assured and contented. Had Moses himself attained it, he likewise would have raised his voice, saying, all praise be to thee for having lifted upon me the light of thy countenance and enrolled me among them that have been privileged to behold thy face. Magnificent apostrophes here by God. Then Baha'u'lláh continues, consider the people and their condition, reflect upon the things that their mouths have uttered and that their hands have wrought in this blessed, this most holy and peerless day. They that have tarnished the good name of the cause of God and turned unto the evil one are accursed of all created things and are numbered among the inmates of the fire. Verily, whosoever hath hearkened to my call shall remain unperturbed by the clamor of all that are on earth. And whosoever is influenced by the words of anyone besides me hath never heard my call. By God, such a man is deprived of entering my kingdom, is debarred from my realms of majesty and power, and is of them that are in utter loss. Friends, I just wanted to underscore this part. Verily, whosoever hath hearkened to my call shall remain unperturbed by the clamor of all that are on earth. I think we hear this clamor throughout the ages. We're hearing it now as well. So that gives us encouragement and assurance more than anything that we should remain undaunted by the noise, by the clamor that's around us. Must be resolute and focused on the greater plan of God through this revelation. In paragraph 20, Baha'u'lláh consoles and commends Anís for his fortitude and patience in the face of persecution by the enemies of the new faith. He writes, sorrow not for that which hath befallen thee. Thou hast borne from my love that which most people have never endured. Thy Lord knoweth and is informed of all. He was with thee in the assemblages and gatherings and heard that which flowed from the wellspring of thy heart in remembrance of thy Lord, the all-merciful. This indeed is a token of his bountiful favor. So Baha'u'lláh consoles him and says, we were there, we remember what you have done. We acknowledge what you have done, which is, again, you can just imagine, Hájí Mirza Ismail, reading this and being so stirred and uplifted by this acknowledgement of his Lord, that all the teaching efforts, all the defense of the faith, and all the persecution that he suffered were in the sight of God, were recorded in the sight of God, and hereby are being acknowledged. In paragraph 21, Baha'u'lláh advances a remarkable promise to his faithful followers, and he prophesizes this. And this I found very fascinating. I don't believe this has been fulfilled. Some people may argue that it may have, may not, but I don't believe this has been fulfilled and is yet to be fulfilled. But let's see what you think. Ere long will God raise up from among the kings one who will aid his loved ones. He verily encompasseth all things. He will instill in the hearts the love of his loved ones. This indeed is irrevocably decreed by one who is the Almighty, the Beneficent. I don't believe there has been a king that will rise to help his loved ones. I don't think there was. In Iran, certainly wasn't. Despite of changes in the attitude of monarchy after Nasir-ad-Din Shah, there really wasn't. Certainly wasn't the Qajar and the Pahlavi. I think the record is very clear. there was persecution still continued. I mean, obviously it was mitigated, but I don't believe that was the case. But again, if there is historical evidence, I'm sure it will come to light. Addressing Dhabíḥ, Baha'u'lláh in paragraph 22 through 27 empowers him to arise to serve his cause and assures him of divine confirmation and protection in this holy quest to promulgate the message of his Lord. So here I probably will skip portions of it. Let's see, paragraphs, because I want to focus on some other paragraphs here. Paragraphs 22 to 27. 22 to 27, yes. Now in paragraph 23, Baha'u'lláh says, O pen of revelation, called out to remembrance him whose letter reached us during this darksome night. So this is where I believe there was the reference, historical reference, that this that the letter of Anís reached Baha'u'lláh while he was moving through the stages of his exile to Akka, while he still was on Turkish soil. So I would want to move through some of these. Here, this is the one, called out to remembrance him whose letter reached us during this darksome night. It is who wandered from region to region until he entered the city, seeking the shelter of the mercy of his Lord, the Almighty, the Most High. So again, these are, I encourage the friends to read these passages and reflect on them. In paragraph 25, it's a wonderful, where he says, grieve not at what hath befallen thee, but put thy whole trust in God, the Almighty, the All-Knowing, the All-Wise. Then he says, raise thy house upon the solid foundation of divine utterances. This is the house of your life. And give praise to thy Lord. He verily shall suffice thee above all the peoples of the earth. There are similar passages in the writings of Baha'u'lláh that are published in the Gleanings as well, worth noting. So now in paragraph, let's see, 26, again, those are all encouragement, and Baha'u'lláh is uplifting and encouraging Anís. Then in paragraph 27, there's a wonderful passage at the end of the paragraph. You'll see that we were of a truth created for sacrifice, and in this do we take pride before all creation. In the same way that the Bab sacrificed himself, he says that I have sacrificed, O remnant of God, I have sacrificed myself completely. Ya baqiyatullah qad fadaytu bikulli, completely. Here, Baha'u'lláh reverberates those words that he says, for his revelation, because he's the wronged one of the world, he is the great sacrifice. And he says that as he is the great sacrifice, then there's these offshoots of sacrifice, people like Dhabíḥ, who are the lesser sacrifices, if you will, but he's the great sacrifice. The Bab was the great sacrifice, and Baha'u'lláh was the great sacrifice, or the most great sacrifice, if you will. So here, Baha'u'lláh said, we were of a truth created for sacrifice, and in this do we take pride before all creation. In paragraph 28, Baha'u'lláh acknowledges receiving Anís's letter, which also contained at least a single question regarding the nature of the human soul. Now, the beloved guardian has translated several tablets of Baha'u'lláh in which Baha'u'lláh talks about the nature of the soul. and this is published in the Gleanings. And as you know, Abdul Baha has extensively, through his public talks and through his writings, have talked about the soul extensively. And but this excerpt here is very interesting. So here and what I want to do here is, I don't want to go through all these paragraphs about the soul. I want this to become an assignment for the students of the class to go through it, to analyze it, and perhaps compare it with some of the other passages that are in the Gleanings regarding the soul, and seeing how how Baha'u'lláh creates this construct and explanation about the soul. I want to focus on paragraph 34. But as you can see here in paragraph 28, Baha'u'lláh says, "Thou who art set aglow with the fire of the love of God, know thou that thy letter have reached us, and that we have been apprised of its contents." Okay? And in paragraph 29 begins. So in paragraph 29, Baha'u'lláh begins to answer Dhabíḥ's question regarding the nature of the human soul. In fact, paragraphs 29, except with the exception of 30, 30 is again, it's more specific to Dhabíḥ and his condition at that time. But paragraph 29, and then 31, 32, 33, 34, 35 all deal with the concept of the soul as described by Baha'u'lláh. So we don't have the time here to examine closely all the illuminating details of what Baha'u'lláh reveals about the soul. However, I wish to share with you some insights about paragraph 34. So in paragraph 34, let's just move to paragraph 34. Okay, should come back to paragraph 34. Okay. In paragraph 34, Baha'u'lláh states that the soul of man has two sets of wings. Now, in the translation literally is two wings. However, I like to propose that it is two sets of wings, because with one set of wings, it's like putting on a set of wings to do one thing and putting another set of wings to do the other thing. Because as you will see, there's a duality here, okay? So this is how I understand it. Now the translation, the English translation that the House have provided, it's a good translation, but I believe it possibly could have, and this has got nothing to do with the translation. The translation is correct, but it's about meaning of what it's the translation is. Even in the Arabic, you know, it refers to janahain, which is basically means wings. Okay, but I believe there's two, instead of two wings, two sets of wings. Where Baha'u'lláh says with one man or humanity can fly towards God, his creator, and with the other, he will soar to the depths of his lower nature and ungodliness. Okay. The reason why I say that there are two sets of wings, because as you will see, there's another tablet in which Baha'u'lláh uses another analogy, which we're going to come to, which also talks about this this duality in the soul of man. Okay. So in this, so this is where Baha'u'lláh in this tablet explains this aspect of the soul. Okay. He says, know also that the soul is endowed with two wings, or as I would say, two sets of wings. Should it soar in the atmosphere of the love and contentment, then it will be related to the All-Merciful. And should it fly in the atmosphere of self and desire, then it will pertain to the evil one. So you see, you can fly. I mean, you can, I guess, use the same wings to fly either to one, one level or to the other. But I would like to think that there are two sets of wings, because with one, you choose. You basically, it's about choice and your free will. Okay, which one do I choose? Do I choose this set of wings that is going to help me elevate myself towards God? Or do I choose this set of wings that is going to bring me down, that is going to bring me to the worldly, things? So that's how I understand it. Again, everyone is entitled to their interpretation, but this is how I understand this. So may God shield and protect us and protect you therefrom, from the evil one, O ye who perceive. Should the soul become ignited with the fire of the love of God, it is called benevolent and pleasing unto God. But should it be consumed with the fire of passion, okay, and this passion here is lust, is not the passion that now in the context that we see it today, to be passionate about doing good work, about being passionate about the environment, and more of a positive passion. This is a negative passion, okay? So the fire of passion, it is known as the concupiscent soul. And the word concupiscent means, as you all know, means lustful, of a sexual nature, okay? So thus have we expounded this subject for thee, that thou mayest obtain a clear understanding. So he's talking about, you could be a benevolent soul or the concupiscent soul. So you have a choice. And he says, and God has given you two wings, two sets of wings, again, in my opinion. And that you could put one on and become the benevolent soul, or you can put the other set on and become the concupiscent soul. So now, similarly, this is where my understanding, through reading various tablets, we get a much better picture. Sometimes when we read one tablet, even like, for example, reading the Iran, if we read the Iran just by itself, we will have probably a more limited understanding. But if we read Jawahir al-Asrar, the Gems of Divine Mysteries, and a few other related works during that period, we'll have a much bigger, much better understanding of the revelation. Now, in another tablet revealed during the Akka period, which is compiled in a collection called Iqtidarat, which was in the handwriting of Mashkin Ghalam, and which was published in Bombay in India during the time of Baha'u'lláh. Baha'u'lláh similarly states that there are two directions, du jahat, in every human being, one towards God and the other towards the self. There's no authorized translation of this. I have provisionally translated this in some of my lecture presentations in the past, but I found this very illuminating, this tablet, where Baha'u'lláh says there are two directions, du jahat, in every human being. One towards God, the other towards the self. When one aligns themselves in the direction of God, then they become the recipient of everything that is good or godly. Now, I brought, for those of you who read Farsi, this is an excerpt from this tablet, which I believe it was revealed to Andalib, one of the believers, but I'm not 100% sure. So if you read this in Farsi, it reads, Du jahat dar insan mawjud, jahati ala Allah wa jahati ala nafsahu. Waqti ke lahaz inayat be jahat awwal nazir, ذکر می نماید درباره او آنچه را که فوق آن در عالم خلق موجود نه. So basically, Baha'u'lláh, again, a very, very loose translation, that there is two directions in humanity, one towards God, one towards self. When one aligns themselves to the first one, meaning towards God, then the individual becomes the recipient of what that excelleth everything within this world. And in a way, it's an answer to some of those people who said, how could someone be such a good person and turn around and fall from grace? This has happened in the annals of religious history, and the Baha'i faith is no has no exception to this, is not, was not accepted from this. We saw it in the revelations of the Bab, those people who turned against him whom God shall make manifest. And then during the ministry of Abdul Baha and later on the ministry of the guardianship, those who rose in opposition of the center of the covenant and later the guardian of the Baha'i faith. For example, to give you an example, Jamal Burujerdi, who was one of the great teachers of the faith, Sayyid Mehdi Dahaji, Jalil Khoyi. These were individuals who had been, elevated by Baha'u'lláh. Jalil Khoyi, the Tablet of Splendors, Ashraqat, was revealed in his honor. Jamal Burujerdi, many tablets were revealed in his honor. And Sayyid Mehdi Dahaji, we have that tablet, many tablets, including the one that is in the tablets of Baha'u'lláh, which is actually entitled The Tablet to Sayyid Mehdi Dahaji. These were individuals that Baha'u'lláh would refer to him, Ismullah al-Mahdi, the name of God, Mahdi. So, they were elevated to a very high level, but they suffered from that, the passion, the lust of power. They wanted to be exalted in this world, and be elevated above everyone else. And this is they became the concupiscent soul. They chose the second set of wings to soar down to themselves, as opposed to choosing the first set of wings, which Haj Mirza Ismail, chose. Now, in the family of Haj Mirza Ismail, as I said to you last time, his younger brother, Haj Mirza Ahmad Kashani, the recipient of the Persian Tablet of Ahmad, not the Arabic Tablet of Ahmad, but the Persian Tablet of Ahmad, which the Guardian has translated large sections of it in the Gleanings. He threw in his lot with Mirza Yahya and became an Azali, and eventually lost his life through some of the quarrels within the Azali group. But here again, the first brother, the eldest brother, Haj Mirza Jani, became a martyr in the Babi revelation, and the second brother, Haj Mirza Muhammad Ismail, became another great exponent of the faith of Baha'u'lláh. But yet the third brother, there may have been more than three, but at least that brother, Ahmad Kashani, fell from grace and chose to take the second set of wings as well. So again, just wanted to take a moment and expound on this explanation of Baha'u'lláh about the soul. So paragraph 34, but definitely I invite the students of the class to examine closely these other paragraphs 29, 31 to 35 again, and analyze it and compare it with other explanations that have been given regarding the soul. In paragraph 35, Baha'u'lláh continues his exposition on the nature of the soul. We're going to skip that as well, as I said. And then in paragraph 36, Baha'u'lláh states that what he has covered here in this tablet about the nature of the soul, he has revealed in greater detail in a previous tablet. And then he makes mention of that tablet. Now, the tablet which he mentions, he says that all that we have mentioned here have been elucidated in the tablets we have revealed in response to questions regarding the disconnected letters of the Quran. It says there are tablets, but one particular tablet is Tafsir Hurufat Muqatta'eh, a commentary on the isolated letters of the Quran, or the Lawh-i-Nur. This is a Baghdad period tablet. There is no official Baha'i English translation of this tablet at the moment, but there is a very good provisional translation by my dear friend, Dr. Stephen Lambden, on his Horgaliyeh website. I believe it's there. And you can Google it and you can come up. It's actually, portions of it may have also been on BahaiLibrary.com. So Dr. Stephen Lambden's provisional translation is posted online. We're not going to get into that, but it's a magnificent tablet, very lengthy tablet, somewhat abstruse as well. I know Stephen has provided some great annotations to it as well. He's a great scholar of Islamic studies, wonderful scholar. I've learned a lot myself from him. So I would suggest that for those of you who are interested to delve more in greater depth into the writings of Baha'u'lláh, that would be one tablet that you can read further, as Baha'u'lláh says that he has given a much more thorough an elucidation in that tablet. But I'm not going to guarantee you that that thoroughness is going to necessarily be more enlightening. It will be, but some of it could still remain very abstract and abstruse. So this is paragraph 36, where he talks about that. Paragraph 37, Baha'u'lláh remembers Mirza Ali Akbar al-Naraqi, one of his companions during the years of his exile in Baghdad. To me, I just find this so fascinating that just out of the blue, this person, and he says, Baha'u'lláh says, O pen of the ancient of days, call thou to remembrance Ali. And again, at first we don't know who that Ali is, but the house have identified through obviously historical research that this is Mirza Ali Akbar al-Naraqi. Now, he has been mentioned, for those of you who are interested, in Baha'u'lláh King of Glory, pages 253 as well as page 261. I have a note here in my book. So again, one of the early believers, one of his companions during the years of his exile in Baghdad, who forsook all his earthly possessions so that he could be near his Lord. Baha'u'lláh then makes a powerful pledge. I love this passage, probably one of my favorite passages. I mean, I have a lot of favorite passages, but this is really one that I remind myself very much of this passage, where Baha'u'lláh pledges that God will always render victorious those who love him. In Arabic, it goes, Innahu yansuru man ahabbahu. Innahu yansuru man ahabbahu. Verily, he verily rendereth victorious those who love him. So as we bear our love, if we show devotion, loyalty, fidelity towards God, the blessed beauty and his cause, God will reciprocate in making us successful. I personally have experienced that myself. I'm sure many of you have as well. But it is truly the love of God that renders victorious. And here's a pledge by the manifestation of God in this tablet. So Baha'u'lláh, again, this passage, O pen of the ancient of days, called out to remembrance Ali, who sojourned with thee in Iraq until the day star of the world departed therefrom. He forsook his home to attain the court of thy presence at a time when we were captive in the hands of such as have been deprived of the sweet savors of the All-Merciful. Grieve not at what hath befallen us and thee in the path of God. Again, I believe this was a part that has been addressed to Dhabíḥ. Rest assured and persevere. He verily rendereth victorious those who love him, and his might is equal to all things. Whoso turns unto him brightens thereby the faces of the concourse on high, and unto this God himself is my witness. What a beautiful passage. In paragraph 38, Baha'u'lláh makes a very challenging declaration to the generality of the peoples of the world. So this is, again, I would say this is in line with the proclamatory tone of Baha'u'llah's style during this period. And it's in Arabic, obviously, the whole tablet is in Arabic. So it's a very powerful, and it's very similar to the similar passages that had been enunciated by him through some of his other prominent tablets to the kings and rulers as well, where he also addressed the generality of the population of the world. Here Baha'u'lláh says, say, O people, Do you imagine, or do ye imagine that after rejecting the one through whom the religions of the world have been made manifest, ye still bear allegiance to the faith of God? By the righteousness of God, ye are accounted among the inmates of the fire. Thus hath the decree been recorded in the tablets by the pen of God. Say, never will the barking of dogs deter the nightingale from warbling its melodies. Ponder a while, that perchance ye may discover a path leading to the eternal truth. Very powerful, very challenging. Now, Baha'u'lláh ends the Súriy-i-Ra'ís with a moving prayer. So paragraphs 39 through 41, which is the last paragraph of the tablet, are all prayer. It's a beautiful Arabic prayer which begins with قُلْ سُبْحَانَكَ اللَّهُمَّ يَا إِلَهِي أَسْأَلُكَ بِالدُّمُوعِ الْعَاشِرِينَ في هوائك والصريخ المشتاقين في فراقك وبمحبوبك. So it's a magnificent prayer. Say, magnified art thou, O Lord my God. I entreat thee by the tears thy lovers have shed in their longing after thee, and by the yearning of those who cry out in their separation from thee, and by the best beloved who hath fallen into the hands of thine adversaries, to graciously assist those who have sought refuge beneath the sheltering wings of thy favor and loving kindness, and who have yearned for no other Lord except thee. We have forsaken our homes, O Lord, in our eagerness to meet thee and in our longing to be united with thee. We have traversed land and sea to attain the court of thy presence and to give ear to thy verses. When we arrive at the shores of the sea, however, we were held back from thee as the ungodly intervened between us and the light of thy countenance. O Lord, dire thirst hath seized us, and with thee are the soft flowing waters of eternal life. Potent art thou to do what pleaseth thee. Deny us not the object of our quest. Write now then for us the recompense decreed for such of thy servants as enjoy near access to thee and are wholly devoted to thy will. Make us so steadfast in thy love that naught shall keep us back from thee or deter us from thine adoration. Powerful art thou to do thy pleasure. Thou verily art the Almighty, the most generous. Now, this prayer obviously was revealed for Dhabíḥ and his companion. He had two other companions as well, who Mr. Balyuzi makes reference in Baha'u'lláh, King of Glory, as well. So this is a prayer that Baha'u'lláh ends the tablet for Dhabíḥ and his companions, and really, gifts them this. I mean, this tablet was as though he met Baha'u'lláh, his questions was answered. Can you just imagine in the midst of all the commotion and the trials of the exile and Baha'u'lláh, God reveals this magnificent tablet to this individual, where he also addresses the prime minister of the time, but mostly singles out this blessed soul who had remained so steadfast in his love for Baha'u'lláh. Anyways, this ends our presentation, part 2. So we are on schedule to continue. Next class, we will be doing we'll resume Lawh-i-Ra'ís. That's right, Lawh-i-Ra'ís in Persian, and hopefully we can remain on schedule. So, Dr. Stockman, help us with the any questions that the friends may have.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Shahrokh. That was a very, very lengthy and therefore very precise and thorough review of this particular tablet. And you made one comment about the translation. I guess I wanted to ask you, I think you mentioned one paragraph translated by The Guardian at the beginning, was it?
But yeah, there are few paragraphs in the tablet that have been translated by The Guardian, but they're small sections. Majority of the tablet, I would say, like 98%, have been completed by the World Center. It's a wonderful translation. There's no question there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about. So we have a couple of comments here. Let's see what we've got. We'll go up to the top here. Well, one person is asking about the difference between Súriy, S-U-R-I-Y, and Surah, S-U-R-A-H, which is a constant confusion.
Different transliteration style. It's, in academic circles, it's S-U with an accent R-A. Surah basically in Arabic means rows. It's also chapters of the Quran, or the whole Quran has been divided into chapters and verse. And the chapters are surah and the verses are ayah. So, there is 114 chapters in the Quran and about 6,300 verses or so in the Quran. So that's essentially. So what I find very interesting, and this is again my theory, as someone who studied the revelation, particularly Baha'u'llah's writings, is that because Baha'u'llah refers that these are all part of the Book of God, and the Book of God is this enormous sort of heavenly book that God chooses to reveal sections of it as He pleases to humanity. So it is very interesting that certain writings are referred to. We have only 5 major books that I believe are the pillars. This could be another course on its own. I believe that there are 5 pillars books in this revelation. The first one being the Bayan Farsi, the book of the Bab, so Kitab Bayan Farsi. Then it's the Kitab Iran, the book of certitude. Then Kitab Badi, Baha'u'llah's wondrous book, which we've had some studies of it, bits and pieces here. Dr. Saidi in Logos and Civilization has done a good portion of it, and there's some very small sections of it, but not really a complete analysis of it. It's Baha'u'llah's Apologia. It's really a magnificent book, lengthier than the Iran, almost the same size as the Bayan, and then the Kitab Aqdas, of course. And then Kitab Ahdi, Baha'u'llah's Will and Testament. So I consider those 5 books of the 5 pillars by which this revelation, everything else is subordinate to these 5. And everything else drives its inspiration, it's basically other seas from this ocean. So this is what I have come up with in this, 30 years of studying the whole revelation. Yeah.
And most of the others don't call themselves Kitab either. Are those the only 5 that use the term Kitab?
Yeah, these are the ones that are actually referred to as Kitab.
Yeah, the others are Lawh or Súriy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tablet by Baha'u'llah, Lawh-i-Siraj, which the Guardian has translated probably one paragraph. This tablet is 111 pages long in the original Persian. Yeah, it's a book.
It's longer than the Kitab-i-Ahd.
Yeah, oh yeah. You see, this is it. The Kitab-i-Ahd is only, the book of my covenant, Kitab Ahdi, as Baha'u'llah calls it, is only 3-4 pages long. Yeah. I mean, but its importance, its covenant, is one of these pillars. So I think the title of book is only bestowed on books that deserve writings that really deserve it. So I think this is something that, I mean, the Bayan is by far the most important and the significant. And I believe, having even now taught the course at Wilmed, I believe that if you didn't study anything of the writings of the Bab and you just studied the Bayan, you would get essentially the essence and what the Bab wanted everyone to get from his revelation. So it certainly is the mother book. I mean, not to say the other books are not important, not to say the other books are not of importance. They certainly are very, very important. But I'm just saying these are the most superlative of them. Now, going back to the surah, Baha'u'lláh in his proclamatory phase of his revelation, right after he began to publicly proclaim his message, there are many Arabic tablets that he calls like Surat al-Qamis, the surah of the garment. There's so many other of these Surat al-Zek, So some of them, the House of Justice have translated excerpts of them in Days of Remembrance. But if you look at these, they are like chapters, and I like to refer to them like there's this wonderful one called Surat al-Bayan, and which is the epistle of the utterance, or the chapter of utterance. Surat al-Ra'ís, okay, so this is one, another one, Súriy-i-Ra'ís. So Surat al-Muluk, Surat al-Haykal, these are magnificent, but they are like chapters. Because they're surah, it's really interesting that they are named that way. Baha'u'lláh actually names, this is Haza Surat al-Bayan, Haza Surat again, there's Surat al-Ra'ís. These are named by the manifestation of God. So they are, in a way, chapters in the greater book of God. So I view them, for purpose of, simplicity more, as these sections of the greater book of Revelation of God, book of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh. And so,
sorry, I was
going to answer the question.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. But I think the other thing to remember is that the Arabic word surah is that H at the end can be pronounced like a T if it's got the two dots on top of it in Arabic. So sometimes it's Suratul. You mentioned Suratul Haykal, I think.
Yeah, it's just when you it's surah in Arabic, and then if you connect it becomes Suratul. Yeah. So depending on, again, what the word is. So we don't want to get into the Arabic grammar here, but again, the Guardian, the reason why I use that Suratul, for example, Haykal, is that in some of his letters, the Guardian uses that. He actually uses sometimes surah, sometimes he uses Suratul. Yes, yeah. For example, Suratul Haykal, he refers, or Suratul Muluk, he refers to those as that. Now, the House have chosen to simplify that and use, because based on the list that the Guardian had provided of Baha'u'llah's best-known works in the Baha'i world, which he uses the word surah, and then he spells it with a different transliteration of S-U with an accent, R-I-H, surah, which is more of a Persian pronunciation of it, as opposed to the Arabic. In the Arabic, it's surah, surah, and in Persian is surah, so it's surah. And the Guardian went with the Persian,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Another question here, or comment actually, this person says, perhaps the reference made to nightingale with a capital N in paragraph 10 is because the nightingale sings its melody when most people are fast asleep, symbolizing the failure of most people to recognize the station of the manifestation when he reveals himself, because they are not spiritually awake.
Of course. That's the nightingale is definitely the bird of one of the birds, the holy birds of paradise, because it sings, and its melodies are, you wake up in the morning. I mean, if you lived in some parts of Iran, where these little nightingales are singing, in Shiraz and Tehran and some places, even in Baghdad, places, you would wake up in the morning and you would hear, the voices of the chirping and the the singing of these nightingales, which is so wonderful. So it has that imagery. Absolutely, yes.
Interesting. Another person says here, in the case of Sayyid Ismail, there were extenuating circumstances because Baha'u'lláh lifted the veil of his station. And Sayyid Ismail was overwhelmed by what he had witnessed. Sayyid Ismail Dhabíḥ, quoted by Hassan Balyuzi in Baha'u'lláh, King of Glory, says this: one night in his Biruni, his blessed person asked for a candle to peruse paper. And I, as usual, lost in wonderment at my own condition, suddenly thought, is it possible that visage, the sight of which the chosen ones and the messengers of God had longed to behold, could be unveiled in the human temple? And as soon as this thought passed through my mind, his blessed voice called out to me, Agha Sayyid Ismail, look. And when I gazed at his blessed face, I saw that which no word can ever describe. All that I can say is this: it seemed as if 100,000 seas, vast and sunlit, billowed upon, I lost it where I was. Billowed, where we go here? It moves quickly on me, if I'm not careful. Billowed upon that blessed face. What happened then, I do not know. My last word to you is this: never ask for anything like this, and be content with what is given unto you.
Yes, this is the sections that Mr. Balyuzi and also Mr. Taiza refers to, and this is an account of Sayyid Ismail as well. Again, I wanted the friends to read that themselves, but yes, he was completely moved when he attained the presence of Baha'u'lláh, and he recognized in him the promised one. This is prior to Baha'u'llah's, obviously, his declaration, even his private declaration in the garden. But so this was during the Ayyam Butun, during the period of concealment. But yet, every now and then God wills to disclose, or he basically lift up the veil of his beauty just marginally, and yet Sayyid Ismail was dazzled by its radiance and was so captivated and just could not bear to live in this world anymore, and so it's a beautiful love story, and it's magnificent.
We have similar accounts of Abdu'l-Baha lifting the veil of his station in the West a few times. Once, of course, to Juliet Thompson and Lua Getzinger. Another time at a feast in Oakland, California. And the experience that people had there of this in this lesser station than the manifestation, but nevertheless they were overwhelmed.
Oh yeah.
So they have that very interesting example as well. One person says, "Bless you, thank you for the broader explanation. How soon will this webinar be available for us to review and use?" And I guess the answer to that is probably within 24 hours. We'll have it up on the YouTube, and I'll have the link in the course. It may take a little more than 24 hours. It's hard to say. Another person, perhaps the hidden words should be added to this key list of pillar books. In one of his tablets, Abdu'l-Baha points out that if Baha'u'lláh had revealed only the hidden words and nothing else, it would have been adequate guidance for the human race, according to Ali Nakhjavani's book, Shoghi Effendi, The Range and Power of His Pen.
Yes, of course. It's very hard to ignore all the other great works. I mean, I just talked about the 5 books that are the pillars. I mean, the station of the hidden words is, according to the Guardian, is third most after the Kitab-i-Aqdas and the Kitab-i-Iran. Yeah. So certainly the hidden words for sure, but there is, again, then now you get into, okay, should the Epistle to the Son of the Wolf, should Surah, Muluk, I mean, it is so hard. All I have said here that there are 5 books that God has chosen. Yeah. Yes, they are the books, and they are preeminent, and they are books, because hidden words is not a book. It's a tablet, and whereas for example, why did Baha'u'lláh refer to his will and testament, which is such a short, tablet, I mean, it could have been called a tablet, my will and testament tablet, good Lawh-i, but he referred to it, he actually calls it the book of my covenant, Kitabu Ahdi. Okay, and Abdul Baha refers to it as the Kitab Ahd, as in the third person. Right. But Baha'u'lláh, the title that it should be, it's the book of my covenant. So it's a book, Kitab. So there is no other book, and Bayan is a Kitab, or what a Kitab it is. The Aqdas is a Kitab, Iran is a Kitab, Badi is a Kitab. So again, we don't have any other books that are really are in that level of, and the impact of it, with in the Kitab Iran, there are so many things like the hidden words, that so-called what the Western friends call it, the tablet of the true seeker, which is an excerpt from the Kitab Iran. Yeah, I mean, that's very similar to the words of the hidden words, in there. So anyways, it's so hard. It's a beautiful garden. It's hard to pick which flowers are there. I'm just looking at it from a sort of a structural point of view, that if we look at, they are all, these 5 pillars are the pillars that I consider, and this is my opinion, it's not really established by the manifestation, but I believe these 5 books are the 5 essential pillars that everything else builds on. I mean, pillars by themselves don't work. Okay, you need to build a foundation. Then there's there's pillars, and then there's the structure that goes on, windows, doors, and all that. So I'm just saying these are the pillars. Anyways.
Yeah, I think that's a good argument. I think that's a reasonable argument. It's also interesting to note that the 7 valleys, 4 valleys, and hidden words are not titled Lawh or Surah or Kitab. It seems like it's something that the Baha'u'lláh did early on in his ministry, but after that, everything had a title with Surah, Kitab, or Lawh.
They're very mystical. The hidden words is very mystical. And so is hidden words. So is the 7 valleys and the 4 valleys. Those are very mystical works. So these 5 books are not mystical. They are very.
And Dhabíḥ al-Asrar also doesn't have a.
Exactly. That's another one. I mean, again, another magnificent.
Páshá also. Yeah. So these early ones are different. That's interesting.
Yeah, they are. They're more. They are a different style. This is different part of the revelation. Yeah. Any other questions?
That's all they've got here, and I don't have anything else either, right offhand.
Okay.
So this was really quite good. I'm really grateful for you for this presentation. We look forward to the next one in 2 weeks.